So I'm gonna go back. I wanted to be able to put them on YouTube, so I have to have them 15 minutes. So I just needed to stop. So we were on fill, the difference between fill and wax. So what fill does is it only fills up to the top part. I do not know why that's not working. Hold on a second. There we go. And then fill. It's just trying to fill in the parts, but it won't go high. It won't go higher than your highest point. And as you can see, it behaves a lot differently. But it's good for ramping, as you can see, closing in gaps, making smoother transitions. Whereas fill keeps it bulbous and is really just adding clay to the top, to the middle, to the bottom, everywhere. The next tool we'll look at is grab. Wow, what happened here? Sorry, hold on a second. Alright, as you saw, everything got really distorted, so again, needed to restart. The next tool we're going to look at is grab. Here, grab is good for using making large adjustments to something. I'll bring that strength down. But if you want to move this whole leg up, that's a good job for grab. Instead of adding to it, and even if we were to, let's say, use wax, you have to build it up. Whereas suppose grab, as opposed to grab, you can just pull pieces up and make large adjustments much easier. So that's definitely a useful tool. Pinch is good for details. So if we had, let's say, let's say we were, I don't know, making some, we're trying to make some detail over here, smooth it out. And the same way that you want to be conscious of your edge quality in Max, you want to still do that in Mudbox too. If you start using smaller brushes and sculpting in, creviced parts like this, you could wind up with, especially with pinch, actually. Let's move up there and I'll show you, maybe we'll find a good example. So when you're using pinch, you can see that it's pinching the verts together, but what can happen is that you can start having them overlap and get pinched too much. This will definitely happen, and you have to be careful for it in crevices, or how strong you're doing it. That's a little too much. It's going to wind up causing a really nasty crease in your model, so you want to be careful of that. Pinch is good to use, and again, you want to pay attention to the fall off that you're using. Is it pinched really tightly? This is kind of nice because it can let you work up your pinch and do subtle pinches. It'll let you just clean up and really reinforce that detail that you're trying to put in. So it's not so bulbous. It gives it more of a solid shape, a more distinguishable shape, I should say. So I use pinch a lot for detailing. The next thing we'll look at is flatten. That's, again, I think a little self-explanatory. It will flatten out your model. you might want to use it, you know, again, this is really broad, but you might want to use it for just cleaning some stuff up, especially if you're doing something that needs a harder edge, or, you know, you don't want it. The one thing with Mudbox that I think that's kind of hard is that a lot of things start looking like they're melting, and a lot of tools that you can use, wax, flatten, and pinch, are three tools that I think really help control that melted clay look that I think gets thrown around in Mudbox a little too often. Foamy is just like a sculpt. Repeat will allow you to create things like zippers, or I'll show you. So if we pick a stamp, let's pick this one, and we're on the repeat tool. Let's say we had like a zipper or some sort of pattern. Let's say we had leaves, or so it's kind of like painting with a stamp, but it allows you a little more control. So there you go. So right now they're kind of close together. Again, I'm not using things that are, should have had my own stamps, but you can make the stamps further apart so it's not so noisy, or closer together. Imprint is also another use for stamps. That's how you do stamps, actually. So stamps are really useful. It allows you to make detail on your model. So I just picked a stamp, and now I'm just dragging it. Again, you can make the strength higher if you want. There you go. And you can pick whichever one you want. The smaller it is, the more noisy it will be. The larger it is, the more definition. Again, depending on the stamp that you actually use. They can be colored or black and white. I usually make mine in black and white, just because I guess it's more standard. There's more of a standardization between everything that I'm making. You also want to, you know, I also tend to cut out the edges like this rather than making a circle or a box. When you have the edges cut out, it gives you more room to, there's less cleaning up. Like if I had my box, that one's not that bad, but you can still see this, you know, shape, this circular shape, and so, again, it depends on the stamp. The other way to do that, let's erase some of this. So you have an erase tool if you don't like anything that you did, or you just want to get rid of some of the small details. Whoa. And you see now how I'm using, because it's on a different layer, I'm not affecting my main model at all. This was what my model looked like originally, which is why you want to use different layers over here. Another way, something that's similar to stamps are my stencils, which I'm not seeing. There you go. So if I go into my stencils, press a stencil, and select this one. It's taking a second to come up. Something comes up. I'll use one that's a little more noisy so that we can see. So something up on here comes up. It will follow your camera. You can see this is how you use the tools. You can move, rotate, or scale. So let's scale that. And if you're on sculpt, you can now paint from that stamp. You can also use wax or any of the other tools to kind of build up that stencil. It's really great if you're doing like skin or, again, you know, overall details. Sometimes you'll use stamps, sometimes you use stencil. It depends on what your use is. Something else, so to get rid of this, you have to hit Q or click off in the stencil to actually get rid of it. Let's say I wanted to do something again that was a little more hard surface. I can now mask out. So down here I went down to mask. I can mask out the areas and say I want to have like a design. And now when I paint, oops. Now when I'm painting, it will go over that mask that I had. So you got to be careful for stuff like this, but masks can be very useful. Knife is to cut away, make some edges. It's very close to scrape. Scrape's a little harsher. Bulge. Amplify. These ones I don't really use. They're towards the end. Scrape is a good one. Did we already have that? No, scrape. Scrape is a good one. That's usually my takeoff tool. I'm not sure why it's at the end right now. These are all a little too noisy. But with scrape, you can make your edges, again, harder. And you're always wanting to try to do that if you have something that's not organic. Or sometimes even inorganic, you want to make, you know, stronger definition for things. Something that I just wanted to go over one more time that could be important is that when you're using a stamp, again, your direction is going to be important. Especially with Unreal, we're going to want to only use the Y direction so that we have really clear definition in our terrain. So, again, it looks kind of weird on the side, but on the tops, it looks really good. And because we're doing terrain, is always top down, right? It's just a flat plane, then it's more helpful. So these are the basics of Mudbox that I think that are important and for you to know. I'll go into making a height map and creating stamps for that in the next video.